My daughter-in-law, Helen, didn't hesitate to call me a controlling mother-in-law right in the middle of my grandson Michael's birthday party. The entire room fell silent, and she glared at me like I was the enemy. But she had no idea. I'd been holding her secret for the past 6 months. Today, I brought the proof that would leave her speechless in front of everyone. I was just waiting for her to say one more word so I could expose her. And what I was about to reveal would turn everything upside down, a final twist no one in the family could have seen coming. I'm Margaret, a 60-year-old widow living in a peaceful suburb near Los Angeles, California. I used to be an elementary school teacher, a job that required patience and dedication, qualities I've always prided myself on. Now, I spend my days tending to my small backyard garden, growing roses and baking apple pies for the neighborhood kids. There's something comforting about the smell of flour and cinnamon mixing in the kitchen, and my greatest joy is seeing the children's faces light up when they come over for a slice on weekends. My only son, David, is 35 and works as a software engineer. He's smart and kind-hearted, but a bit clueless when it comes to managing family matters. 8 years ago, he married Helen, a sharp, ambitious marketing manager who always seems to be hiding something behind her perfect smile. They have 2 children, Michael, my energetic 8-year-old grandson, who's always getting into mischief but has a heart of gold, and Emily, a sweet 4-year-old, who hugs me tightly and calls me Gamma in her adorable, lisping voice. We live just a few blocks apart, in a tree-lined neighborhood where the houses are neat and the lawns are manicured. From the outside, our family looks picture-perfect: a successful son, a beautiful daughter-in-law, and 2 adorable grandchildren. But beneath the surface, cracks have been forming for a long time, and I was the first to feel them. I've always tried to be a good mother-in-law. I'd bring over homemade pies, babysit the kids when Helen had late meetings, and bite my tongue whenever she snapped at me for interfering too much. But lately, Helen has been pushing me away. She started making comments like, "Margaret is so old-fashioned," during family dinners, while David would just stare at his plate, too timid to defend me. One day, I overheard Michael whisper to Emily, "Mom says Grandma's a witch." That broke my heart. Helen was turning my own grandchildren against me, and I couldn't understand why. Things got worse when Helen began limiting my time with the kids. "You're too controlling, Margaret," she said coldly, one afternoon when I dropped off some toys for Michael. I was hurt, but stayed quiet, to keep the peace for David and the children. I didn't want to be the cause of a family rift. But Helen didn't stop there. At a family gathering, she sneered in front of everyone. "Margaret thinks she knows everything, but she's stuck in the last century." I swallowed my anger, but inside, a fire was starting to burn. Then, one day, while I was playing with Emily in the backyard, she innocently blurted out, "Mommy says you're not good for us." I froze, staring at her sweet, clueless face. Helen wasn't just trying to push me out of their lives. She was poisoning my grandchildren's minds against me. Why? What had I done to make her hate me so much? Around the same time, I started noticing strange things. Helen would quickly hide her phone whenever I walked into the room. She'd lie to David about money, vague explanations about shopping trips or household expenses. Once, I overheard her whispering on the phone, "Don't call now. He's home." I didn't have proof yet, but a mother's intuition told me Helen was hiding something big. David started pulling away, too. His visits became shorter, his hugs more perfunctory. I felt like a stranger in the family I'd spent my life building. One day, I checked the college fund I'd set up for Michael and Emily when they were born. It was nearly empty. Over $20,000 had vanished without a trace. I called David, trying to stay calm. The kids' fund is almost gone. What's going on, son? He brushed it off. Helen handles the money, Mum. She's got it under control. But his voice trembled, and I knew he was starting to doubt her too. The real shock came on a rainy evening when my neighbour, Linda, texted me a photo. Helen, dressed to the nines in a tight red dress, laughing with a strange man at a fancy restaurant downtown. It wasn't David. I gripped my phone, hands shaking. I could have stormed over to their house and confronted her right then, but I held back. If I was going to expose Helen, I needed more than a photo. I needed a plan she couldn't escape from. I'm not the type to let betrayal slide. Through an old friend, I contacted Tony, a gruff private investigator who knew how to dig up dirt. I handed him the photo and said, "Find out what she's doing behind my son's back." Within weeks, Tony returned with a thick file, clear photos of Helen and the other man embracing in a car, receipts from weekend getaways to Santa Barbara, even footage of them kissing outside a luxury hotel. Bank statements showed she'd withdrawn over $25,000 from the kids' college fund and funneled a chunk of it to her lover. But the worst blow came when I secretly had DNA tests done on the children. I'd taken a few strands of hair from Michael and Emily the last time they slept over, and Tony sent them to a lab. The results. Michael was indeed David's son, my flesh and blood. But Emily, the little girl with the big, innocent eyes, was not David's daughter. Helen had been deceiving my son for years, and Emily was living proof of her betrayal. I was devastated, unable to sleep for a week, but grief quickly turned to fury. I decided not to act rashly. Instead, I had a friend buy the house next door to David and Helen's, so they wouldn't suspect anything when I started showing up more often. From my new vantage point, I watched Helen's every move, late-night departures, hushed phone calls on the balcony. I bided my time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Revenge, I realized, is best served cold, and I wanted it to hit her hard. Michael's birthday party was the ideal setting for my plan. I spent the entire day in the kitchen, preparing his favorite dishes: roast chicken, creamy mashed potatoes, and a towering 3-layer chocolate cake. The family gathered in the backyard, laughter filling the air, but I could feel Helen's smug glances in my direction. Then, halfway through the meal, she stood up, wineglass in hand, and let loose. "I've had enough," she announced loudly. "Margaret is always meddling, telling me how to raise my kids, acting like she owns this family. I'm done pretending. She's a controlling mother-in-law, and I want everyone to know it." The backyard fell silent. David stared at his plate, too cowardly to look up. I rose slowly, picking up the microphone I'd borrowed from my old school's AV club, and smiled calmly. "Helen," I said, my voice steady, "you've said a lot about me. Now let me show everyone who you really are." I switched on the projector I'd set up earlier. One by one, the images appeared on the screen. Helen and her lover on secret dates, embracing in parked cars. Next came the bank statements, with the missing money highlighted in red. Finally, the DNA results in bold letters. Emily is not David's daughter. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Helen's face turned ashen, and her wineglass slipped from her hand, shattering on the patio. "It's fake!" she screamed, her voice trembling. "You're insane, Margaret." "Check the originals," I replied coolly, tossing a stack of documents onto the table. "I've got copies for anyone who wants to see." David slumped in his chair, head in his hands, as if his entire world had just crumbled. My brother John started to step forward, but I waved him off. "One more thing," I said, locking eyes with Helen. 2 weeks ago, I rewrote my will. Everything, my house, my savings, all my assets, now belongs to Michael, my only true grandchild. You, Helen, get nothing. Her mouth fell open, but no words came out. The family turned on her. Angry whispers, disgusted looks. One of David's cousins muttered, "How could she do this to him?" I didn't stay to watch her squirm. I'd said what I needed to say, and now it was time to leave. A week later, I sold my house and moved to a small coastal town in Northern California. Before I left, I slipped a note under David's door. "You let her turn the kids against me, David. You chose her lies over your own mother. I'm done trying to fix this. Take care of Michael. He's the only real thing you have left." I don't feel good about tearing my family apart, but I don't regret it either. Helen thought she was smarter than me, that she could push me out of their lives without consequences. She was wrong. Now, sitting on my new porch, listening to the waves crash and breathing in the salty air, I've found the peace I deserve. That's the sweetest revenge of all. Not the shouting or the tears, but the freedom from lies. For me, that's enough.